Commander Jinha stood in the massive crystal chamber of the Galactic Council Station. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and the air hummed with alien technology. Around him floated the images of council members from across the galaxy. Some looked like giant lizards. Others sparkled like living diamonds. A few were just balls of energy that spoke through machines. Jinha wore his best uniform. Earth had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. 3 years of following every rule. 3 years of proving that humans could be trusted. Today, Earth would finally join the galactic community. "Humans of Earth," spoke Chancellor Vorthak, his reptilian face showing what might have been a smile. "Your species has shown great promise. We welcome you to the council." The other council members made sounds of agreement. Jinha felt his heart race with excitement. After so many years of being alone in the universe, humanity would have friends. Among the stars, "We offer you our protection," continued the Chancellor, "our technology, our trade routes. All we ask is that you follow council law." Jinha bowed his head. "Earth accepts these generous terms. We look forward to learning from older, wiser species." The crystal beings of the collective spoke next, their voices like singing glass. "We will send technical advisors to your world. They will help upgrade your defenses and communication systems." "That's very kind," John replied. But something felt wrong. The way they said upgrade your defenses made his skin crawl. Why did peaceful species need to worry about human defenses? Back on Earth, Admiral Harin stood on the bridge of the orbital defense platform Terra 1 through the massive windows. She watched alien ships approaching Earth. The Council had been quick to send their technical advisors. Too quick. "Admiral," called her aide. "The alien ships are requesting permission to dock with all our major defense stations." Harin frowned. "All of them? That seems like a lot for a technical upgrade. Should I deny the request?" Harin thought for a moment. The Council had been nothing but friendly. Earth needed their help to catch up with galactic technology. But her military instincts screamed danger. "Grant permission," she said finally. "But I want full security details watching every alien advisor." In the engineering bay of Terra Station, Chief Engineer Quan worked alongside 3 Council technicians. They moved with practiced ease, installing new systems into Earth's defense network. The technology was amazing. Energy shields that could stop planet-killer weapons. Faster than light communication that worked across the galaxy. Weapons that could destroy asteroids with single shots. "This is incredible," Quan said, watching the aliens work. "It would take us 100 years to develop this on our own." The lead technician, a tall being covered in metal plates, nodded. "The Council believes in sharing knowledge with worthy species." Quan smiled and went back to his work. But as he studied the new systems, he noticed something strange. Hidden deep in the computer code were programs he didn't recognize. They seemed to be mapping Earth's entire defense network. Every weapon, every shield, every weakness. "What are these subroutines for?" he asked the alien technician. "Standard diagnostic programs," the alien replied without looking up. "They help optimize performance." Quan nodded but made a mental note to look into this later. Something didn't feel right. On the Council Station, Jinha was touring the facilities with other new member species. The Altarians had joined just last month. The Centauri Republic had been members for 5 years. Everyone seemed happy to be part of the galactic community. "The Council takes care of its members," explained his tour guide, a friendly creature. That looked like a walking tree. "We provide protection, technology, and peaceful trade." "What about species that don't want to join?" asked Jin-Ha. The tree being paused. "Most species see the benefits of council membership. Those who don't, well, they usually change their minds eventually." Jinha didn't like the way that sounded. "What do you mean?" "Oh, nothing violent," the guide said quickly. "Economic pressure. Trade restrictions. Sometimes military exercises near their space, just until they see reason." That night, Jinha couldn't sleep. He walked through the station's corridors, thinking about the guide's words. In the diplomatic quarter, he heard voices coming from a conference room. The door was slightly open. The human integration is proceeding on schedule, said a voice he recognized as Chancellor Vorthak. Good, replied another voice, this one belonging to the Crystal Collective. Their defenses will be completely compromised within the week. Jinha's blood went cold. He pressed closer to the door. The humans trust us completely, continued Vorthak. They think they're joining the council as equals. They have no idea what's coming. How many ships will we need? Asked a third voice. 50,000 should be enough. Their military is primitive. Once we control their defense systems, Earth will surrender without a fight. Jinha's hands began to shake. He had to get closer to hear more. The resource surveys are complete, said Vorthak. Earth has everything we need, rare metals, perfect farming worlds, and 70 billion humans to work the mines and farms. Slaves. You mean, said the collective. Willing workers, Vorthak corrected with what sounded like a laugh. They'll be grateful for council protection once we explain their new role in galactic society. Jinha backed away from the door, his mind racing. The council wasn't welcoming Earth as a member. They were preparing to invade. All those friendly advisors, all that helpful technology, it was all a trap. He had to warn Earth, but how? The council controlled all communication between the station and human space. If he tried to send a message, they would stop him. Integration begins in 72 hours, Vorthak was saying. All council fleets are to be in position by then. 72 hours, Jinha had 3 days to get home and warn his people. At first he needed proof. Nobody would believe him without evidence. He crept back to his quarters and began working. If the council thought humans were primitive and helpless, they were about to learn their first lesson about humanity. Humans didn't give up, ever. And when they were betrayed by those they trusted, they became something far more dangerous than their enemies ever imagined. Jinha ran through the council station's corridors like a man on fire. In his hands he carried a datapad filled with stolen files, audio recordings of the council's real plans, fleet positions, attack schedules, everything Earth needed to know that their new friends were actually their enemies. Getting the information had been dangerous. Jinha had waited until the night shift, then snuck into the council's military planning center. The alien guards were lazy, thinking no primitive human would dare spy on them. They were wrong. Now Jinha had less than 60 hours to get home and warn his people. He reached the docking bay where human shuttlecraft waited. But as he approached, council security guards stepped out of the shadows. Commander Jinha, said the lead guard, a tall alien with 4 arms. Chancellor Vorthak wants to see you. Jinha's heart pounded. Did they know what he had done? He forced himself to stay calm. Of course. But I was just leaving for Earth. Routine inspection of our new defense upgrades. The inspection can wait. The guard said, the Chancellor insists. Jinha nodded and followed them. But as soon as they turned a corner, he ran. The guard shouted and chased after him, but Jinha knew the station better now. He had spent weeks exploring every corridor. He reached the emergency docking bay where small council scout ships were kept. Jinha had studied alien technology for months. He hoped it was enough. The scout ships' controls were strange, but humans were fast learners. Jinha got the engine started just as security forces burst into the bay. The ship lifted off as energy bolts flew around it. Human vessel, return immediately. Came the radio message. Jinha switched off the radio and pushed the engines to maximum power. The scout ship shot away from the station and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind him, council ships gave chase, but Jinha had a head start. The journey to Earth took 18 hours. During the flight, Jinha sent coded messages. Ahead, using human military frequencies the council didn't monitor. His message was simple. The council is not our friend. They plan to attack in 50 hours. Prepare for war. On Earth, Admiral Harin received Jinha's message while standing in the Defense Command Center. Around her, screens showed the positions of every human ship and defense platform. It wasn't much compared to galactic powers. 800 ships total. Half of them were civilian vessels with light weapons. Ma'am, called her communications officer, we're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Haran looked at the main screen. Dots of light were appearing in space. Hundreds of them, then thousands. "My God," whispered her aide. "How many ships is that?" "Computer, count and identify incoming vessels," Haran ordered. The computer's voice was calm and cold. "Detecting 53,000 hostile ships of various classes. Fleet composition includes vessels from 12 different species." 53,000 ships. Haran felt sick. Earth's entire fleet could fit inside one of those massive council dreadnoughts, but Haran was a soldier. She had fought in the resource wars, she had commanded ships during the Mars Rebellion. She knew that being outnumbered didn't mean being beaten. "Send message to all Earth forces," she said. "Activate Protocol Lazarus, full mobilization. Every ship, every station, every armed satellite." Her aide looked confused. "Ma'am, Protocol Lazarus was never approved by Parliament." "Parliament isn't here," Haran replied. "I am, and I'm activating it now." Protocol Lazarus was Earth's theoretical last resort. Every factory would switch to military production. Every civilian ship would be armed. Every space station would become a fortress. It would bankrupt Earth's economy and militarize their entire civilization, but it was better than the slavery dot in the asteroid belt. Chief Engineer Quan received the mobilization order while working on a mining station. Around him, hundreds of workers stopped their jobs and looked at him for answers. "You heard the Admiral," Quan said. "This mining platform is now a military base. Get those rock cutters and turn them into weapons. Rig the ore containers as bombs. Move all the food and water to the protected sections." "Quan," said his assistant, a young woman named Sol. "The Council ships have our weapons technology. They know how to beat us." Quan smiled grimly. "That's their first mistake. They gave us their technology, but they don't understand what humans do with technology." Over the next 2 days, Quan worked like a man possessed. He took apart every piece of Council equipment, removed the hidden programs, and rebuilt it better. Where the Council used their weapons to destroy, Quan made them create. Energy weapons became mining tools that could cut through asteroids. Shield generators became power sources. Communication systems became jamming devices, but the real breakthrough came when Quan found the Council's central control frequency. Every piece of their technology was connected to a master network. The Council could shut down any ship or weapon they wanted. "Not anymore," Quan muttered as he built a jamming device that would cut that connection. Jinha's ship arrived at Earth just as the Council fleet finished forming up at the edge of the solar system. 53,000 alien ships hung in space like a cloud of death. At their head was a massive dreadnought the size of a small moon. Jinha landed at Earth Defense Command and ran to the control room. Haran was there, coordinating Earth's desperate preparations. "Jinha," she said, "please tell me you have good news." "I have intelligence on their fleet positions and attack plans," Jinha replied, handing over the datapad. "But Haran, they have 50,000 ships. We have 800. "I know," Haran said calmly. "But they expect us to surrender when they show their strength. They think humans are like other species, logical, careful, willing to accept slavery to avoid death. Aren't we?" asked Jinha. Haran smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator about to hunt. They made 3 mistakes. First, they think 50,000 ships is enough. Second, they think we'll fight like they do. Third, they think humans are reasonable. The main screen showed the Council fleet beginning to move. Massive ships advancing in perfect formation. Confident in their overwhelming power. "What do we do?" Jinha asked. "We show them what humans become when someone tries to kill our children," Haran replied. "Battle stations, all ships. It's time to teach the galaxy that humans don't surrender." In the asteroid belt, Quan's mining station powered up its weapons. Around it, dozens of other hidden bases did the same. The Council expected to find helpless humans cowering on Earth. Instead, they were about to learn their first lesson about humanity. When you corner a human, you don't get surrender, you get war. The first Council ships entered the asteroid belt like wolves hunting sheep. Their sensors showed nothing but floating rocks and abandoned mining stations. The fleet admiral, a proud Vorthok named Sektar, smiled with satisfaction. Humans are hiding on their little planet, he told his officers. Cowards, we will be home in time for the victory celebration. That was when Quan's trap activated. Mining Station Alpha 7 suddenly blazed with weapon fire. What the Council thought was an empty platform was actually a disguised fortress. Laser cutters meant for slicing asteroids carved through alien hull. Armor like hot knives through butter. What? Sektar roared. There should be nothing there. More hidden bases came alive throughout the asteroid belt. All haulers revealed themselves as missile platforms. Processing plants opened fire with weapons that humans had built from stolen Council technology. In 30 seconds, the Council lost 200 ships, but they had 53,000. The losses barely mattered. All ships, return fire, Sektar ordered. Destroy everything in this belt. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Council ships fired planet-killer weapons at mining stations. But the humans didn't stay still. They moved their bases like ships. Using the asteroids as cover, Quan watched the battle from his command center inside a hollowed-out asteroid. His mining station fired everything it had, then immediately moved to a new position. Around him, his crew worked with desperate efficiency. "Incoming missiles," called Sol, his assistant. "Fire the chaff," Quan ordered. The station launched clouds of metal debris, waste from years of mining. The Council missiles exploded harmlessly in the metal cloud. But more missiles were coming. "Quan," Sol said, her voice tight with fear. "We can't keep this up forever." "We don't have to," Quan replied. "We just have to make them bleed." On the bridge of Earth's flagship, Admiral Harin watched the battle through her tactical displays. The humans were outnumbered 60-1, but they were making the Council pay for every mile of space. "Admiral," called her weapons officer, "the belt stations have destroyed 800 enemy ships," Harin nodded. 800 Council ships gone, but they still had over 50,000 left. The math was simple and terrible. "Ma'am," her communications officer interrupted, "we're getting strange readings from the Council fleet. Their formation is breaking apart." Harin looked at the main screen. The Council ships were spreading out, no longer moving in perfect formation. Why would they do that? Her answer came from an unexpected source. Jinha's voice crackled over the radio from his position in the belt. "Harin, I'm picking up Council communications. They're arguing with each other. Some species want to withdraw. They've never seen casualties like this before." Harin smiled grimly. The Council was used to easy victories. When primitive species saw their overwhelming fleets, they surrendered. Immediately, but humans didn't surrender. They fought back, and other species died. For beings who hadn't lost a war in 1,000 years, seeing their ships explode was a shock. "Keep hitting them," Harin ordered. "Make them remember every ship they lose." In the asteroid belt, Jinha commanded a squadron of converted or haulers. His ships weren't fast or heavily armed, but they had one advantage: they were expendable. And humans weren't afraid to use them. "All ships, ramming speed," Jinha ordered as a Council dreadnought approached their position. "Sir," his pilot said, "that's suicide." "No," Jinha replied. "Suicide is giving up. This is war." 5 human ships accelerated toward the massive alien vessel. The Council ship's weapons destroyed 3 of them, but Jinha's ship and 1 other made it through. They crashed into the dreadnought's hull with nuclear force. The explosion was visible from Earth. But the real victory wasn't the destroyed ship. It was the fear in the Council communications. "These humans are insane," screamed one alien captain. "They use their ships as weapons." "They don't follow the rules of war," complained another. "This is barbaric." Quan listened to their complaints with satisfaction. Rules of war? The Council had planned to enslave humanity. They had forfeited any right to civilized treatment. "Sol," he called, "release Package 7. Sol's hands hesitated over the controls. Package 7 was Quan's most terrible creation. A computer virus designed to attack Council ship systems. It was based on their own technology, but twisted into something they would never expect. Quan, Sol said softly, this will kill thousands of them. They came here to kill billions of us, Quan replied. Release it. The virus spread through the Council fleet's communication network like wildfire. It didn't destroy ships, but it did something worse. It made them unreliable. Weapons fired at random. Shields failed without warning. Navigation systems gave false readings. Within an hour. The Council fleet was in chaos. Admiral Sektar watched his perfect invasion force falling. Apart, ships were colliding with each other. Entire squadrons were lost when their navigation failed. His communications with the home fleets were being jammed by the humans' stolen technology. Sir, his aide said nervously, perhaps we should consider withdrawal. Sektar's reptilian eyes blazed with anger. Withdrawal from primitive humans? Never. But even as he spoke, more of his ships were dying. The humans had turned the entire asteroid belt into a weapon. Every rock could hide enemies. Every mining station could explode without warning, and the humans themselves fought like demons. When their ships were damaged, they rammed enemy vessels. When their weapons failed, they used their ships as bombs. When they were boarded, they fought with tools, bare hands, and pure rage. Admiral, came a transmission from one of his boarding parties. We've taken a human station, but, sir, they destroyed their own life support rather than be captured. They chose death over surrender. Sektar stared at the tactical display. In 3 weeks of fighting, he had lost over 3,000 ships. Not to superior technology or clever tactics, but to sheer human stubbornness, they refused to accept defeat. Even when outnumbered, even when outgunned, even when facing certain death, this is impossible, he muttered. Every species surrenders when faced with overwhelming force. It's logical, it's sensible. His aide looked at him with growing fear. Sir, I don't think humans are sensible. On Earth, Haran received reports from across the solar system. The battle was far from over, but something had changed. The Council fleet was no longer advancing. They were spread out, confused, and fighting each other as much as they were fighting humans. Jinha, she called over the radio. Status report. Jinha's voice was tired but determined. We've hurt them, Haran, really hurt them. They're starting to understand that this won't be easy. Good, Haran replied, because we're just getting started. In his hidden base, Quan was already working on his next surprise for the Council. They thought they had seen everything humans could do. They were wrong. 6 months had passed since the Battle of the Belt. Admiral Sektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the massive fleet that surrounded him. 200,000 ships from every corner of the galaxy. Planet crackers that could split worlds in half. Weapons that could burn entire star systems. The Council had decided that humanity was too dangerous to live. The Extinction protocol was simple: kill every human, destroy every human world, and make sure nothing remained of their species. Admiral, his aide reported, all fleets are in position. We are ready to begin the final attack. Sektar nodded. This time there would be no mistakes, no mercy, no survivors. The massive fleet moved toward Earth's solar system like a wave of death. Sektar expected desperate resistance, last-minute surrender offers, or panicked evacuation attempts. Instead, he found nothing. Sensors detect no human ships, reported his tactical officer. Earth's orbital stations are dark. No radio transmissions. No signs of life? Sektar frowned. They couldn't have evacuated 70 billion people. Where are they? Perhaps they are hiding on the planet's surface, suggested his aide. Then we will burn the surface, Sektar replied coldly. Begin bombardment positions? The Council fleet spread out around Earth like hunters surrounding wounded prey. Planet crackers moved into position to split the world apart. Smaller ships prepared to glass any remaining cities. It was when Admiral Haran sprung her trap. All ships, she broadcast on human frequencies, welcome home. Show them what Earth's children have learned. Space around Earth suddenly filled with ships. They came from behind the moon, from Jupiter's shadow, from hidden bases throughout the outer system. But these weren't the desperate converted mining ships from 6 months ago. These were warships. Real warships. Built by humans who had spent 6 months studying every weakness in Council technology. Jinha stood on the bridge of the ESV Indomitable, humanity's first true dreadnought. The ship was twice the size of anything humans had built before, covered in armor made from alien materials, armed with weapons that combined the best of human and Council technology. "Target their flagship," Jinha ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves properly." The Indomitable's main gun fired. The energy beam wasn't just powerful, it was smart. Quan had designed it to adapt to enemy shields, changing frequency and intensity to find weaknesses. The beam punched through the Council flagship shields like they were paper. The massive alien ship staggered under the impact. "Impossible," Sektar whispered. "Their weapons can't penetrate our shields." "Sir," his tactical officer called, "detecting over 50,000 human ships. They're everywhere." Around Earth, the human fleet revealed itself in all its terrible glory. 6 months of frantic construction had produced a navy that dwarfed anything in human history. Sleek destroyers built for speed. Massive carriers launching clouds of fighter craft. Battleships bristling with weapons that could crack moons. But the real shock was how they fought. Council ships fired in neat formations, following battle plans written by generals who had never lost a war. Human ships moved like living things, attacking from unexpected angles, coordinating without obvious commands. "How are they doing this?" demanded Sektar as another of his dreadnoughts exploded under human fire. The answer was simple. Humans had spent 6 months not just building ships, but learning to fight as one mind. Every captain had studied every other captain's tactics. Every crew had trained with every other crew. They weren't just a fleet. They were a pack of wolves, and they were hunting. Quan watched the battle from his command ship, the ESV Prometheus. Around him, screens showed the real scope of his work over the past 6 months. He hadn't just built weapons, he had built a new kind of warfare. "Release the swarm," he ordered. Thousands of small drones launched from human ships. Each one was barely bigger than a fighter craft, but they carried enough firepower to cripple a Council cruiser. They moved in perfect coordination, like a school of metal fish surrounding larger prey. The Council had never seen anything like it. Their weapons were designed to fight big targets, not clouds of tiny attackers. "Sir," reported Quan's tactical officer, "the swarm has destroyed over 300 enemy ships." But Quan wasn't done. For 6 months, he had prepared for this moment. The Council thought they knew human technology because they had given it to them originally. They were wrong. "Activate the network," Quan said quietly. Across the human fleet, every ship connected to every other ship. Information flowed instantly between captains, gunners, and engineers. When one ship found an enemy weakness, every other ship knew about it immediately. The Council fleet, designed for individual ship combat, couldn't adapt fast enough. Admiral Sektar watched his perfect invasion force being torn apart by creatures he had dismissed as primitive. Human ships seemed to predict his moves before he made them. Their weapons struck his weakest points with surgical precision. "Admiral," his aide said desperately, "we've lost over 10,000 ships. We should retreat." "No," Sektar roared. "We have 200,000 ships. We can't lose to these animals." But even as he spoke, more of his vessels were dying. The humans fought with a savagery that terrified his crews. When Council ships were damaged, they retreated for repairs. When human ships were damaged, they exploded their engines to take nearby enemies with them. "Sir," came a panicked transmission from one of his captains, "the humans are boarding us. They're fighting in the corridors. They're not taking prisoners." Jinha led the assault on the Council flagship personally. His Marines moved through alien corridors like avenging angels, their weapons cutting down any resistance. They had learned to fight in Council ships during the belt battles, and now that knowledge served them well. "Bridge secured," reported his sergeant. "All enemy officers captured." Jinha entered the bridge where Admiral Sektar waited under guard. The reptilian commander looked at Jinha with a mixture of fear and confusion. How? Sektar asked. How? Did primitives like you defeat the greatest fleet in galactic history? Jinha smiled coldly. You made one mistake, Admiral. You thought we were still the same humans who begged to join your council 6 months ago. What are you now? Sektar whispered. We're what humans become when you try to kill our children, Jinha replied. And now the galaxy is going to learn what that means. Through the flagship's windows, both aliens and humans could see the scope of humanity's victory. Council ships were fleeing in every direction, their formations broken, their confidence shattered, but the greatest shock was yet to come. As the defeated Council forces retreated, they received transmissions from across the galaxy. Human colonies had been established on dozens of worlds. Earth's children hadn't been hiding, they had been spreading. The Council had come to destroy one human world. Instead, they had discovered a human empire. The final battle took place above Earth itself. What remained of the Council fleet, barely 20,000 ships from the original 200,000, made their desperate last stand in humanity's home system. Admiral Harin stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the ESV Retribution. Through the massive windows, she could see the blue marble of Earth floating peacefully below. It was hard to believe that 6 months ago, the same world had been helpless prey for alien invaders. Now, Earth was the center of something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral, her communications officer called, we're receiving surrender offers from 17 different Council species. Ignore them, Harin replied coldly. They had their chance to be reasonable. Now they learn what happens when you threaten human children. The battle was not really a battle anymore. It was a hunt. Human ships moved through space like sharks, through bloody water, picking off Council vessels one by one. The aliens' formations had completely broken down. Some ships tried to flee. Others begged for mercy. A few still fought with hopeless courage. Jinha commanded the assault on the Council's last stronghold, a massive space station they had brought to coordinate the invasion. His boarding parties moved through its corridors like a flood of steel. And fury, resistance is collapsing, reported his sergeant over the radio. Most aliens are surrendering without a fight. Good, Jinha replied. But find me the Council leaders. The ones who planned this genocide. They don't get to surrender. Jinha found them in the station's command center, 6 beings from different species, all cowering behind overturned furniture. These were the great leaders who had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. Now they looked like frightened children. Please, begged Chancellor Vorthak, the reptilian leader who had welcomed Jinha to the Council so many months ago. We can negotiate trade agreements, technology transfers. Anything you want. Jinha looked at them with eyes as cold as space. Negotiate? You mean like when you negotiated our membership while planning to enslave us? That was different, Vorthak protested. Your species was primitive. We were bringing you civilization? And now? Jinha asked. Vorthak looked around at the human soldiers surrounding them, at the weapons pointed at his head, at the displays showing his fleet's complete destruction. Now you are the civilization, he whispered. Meanwhile, in the deepest levels of the space station, Quan was making history. He had connected his systems to the Council's main communication network, not to spy this time, but to broadcast. Sol, he said to his assistant, are we connected to every world in the galaxy? Yes, she replied, her voice filled with awe. Every planet, every space station, every ship. The entire galaxy is listening, Quan smiled. For months he had worked toward this moment. The chance to speak directly to every species in known space. Begin transmission, he ordered, across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, billions of beings suddenly received the same message. It appeared on their screens, echoed from their speakers, and blazed across their skies. It was simple and terrifying. This is Engineer Quan of Earth, the message began. 6 months ago, your council tried to destroy my species. They failed. Today, we return the favor. The transmission showed the wreckage of the council fleet floating around Earth. broken ships, burning stations. The complete destruction of the galaxy's greatest military force. For 1,000 years you ruled through fear, Huan continued. You crushed anyone who opposed you. You enslaved entire species. You thought you were untouchable. The images changed, showing human colonies on distant worlds. Human ships patrolling trade routes, human technology being shared with species. That had opposed the Council. You were wrong. Humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive, and humanity does not lose. But the most shocking part of the message came next. A list of every species that had participated in the invasion. Every world that had sent ships. Every government that had voted for human extinction. These worlds now have a choice, Quan said. Submit to human authority or face the consequences. You have one standard galactic month to decide. The transmission ended with an image that burned itself into the memory of every being in the galaxy. Earth, surrounded by the largest fleet anyone had ever seen, with Jinha's voice delivering. The final message: we are humanity, we were slaves to no one. We bow to no one, we fear no one, remember our name. On Earth's surface, the three architects of humanity's victory stood together for the first time since the war began. Jinha, no longer a diplomat but the commander of humanity's space forces. Harin, no longer just an admiral but the supreme leader of Earth's military. Quan, no longer just an engineer but the creator of weapons that had changed the galaxy forever. Around them, the planet was rebuilding. But this wasn't the same Earth that had begged to join the Council. This was something new. Something that had been forged in the fire of betrayal and tempered by the hammer of war. Reports from the colonies? Harin asked. All secure, Jinha replied. 47 human worlds, all thriving. The Council never even knew they existed. And our fleet strength? Growing every day, Quan answered. We're not just building ships anymore. We're building an empire, Harin nodded. In the distance, she could see human ships landing and taking off, trade vessels. Colony ships, warships, the infrastructure of a civilization that spanned the stars. Ma'am, called an aide, we're receiving responses to our ultimatum. 37 species have agreed to submit to human authority. 12 are requesting protection from us. 8 are asking to become human colonies. And the others? Harin asked. Still deciding, the aide replied nervously. Jinha smiled grimly. They'll decide. Fear is a powerful teacher. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. The Galactic Council was gone, its leaders either dead or imprisoned. In its place stood something the galaxy had never imagined, a human empire. That stretched from the core worlds to the outer rim. The species that had once ruled now served. The weapons that had once threatened Earth now protected human colonies. The trade routes that had once enriched alien worlds now carried human goods to human markets. But the greatest change was in humanity itself. They were no longer the desperate, hopeful species that had begged for acceptance. They were conquerors, rulers. The fire that had burned in human hearts during their darkest hour had transformed them into something the galaxy would remember forever. On his flagship, Jinha looked out at the stars and smiled. Somewhere out there, on distant worlds, beings looked up at those same stars and whispered the name that had become legend. Humanity. They had tried to kill the humans. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous, a species that had learned what it truly meant to fight for survival. And now the galaxy belonged to them.